Hello, this is Jonathan Culver. I'm a sales engineer with Teradici, and today in this video I'm going to show you the installation of PC-over-IP Management Console Enterprise Edition. This is the second video in the series. The first video covered an overview of the features available in the Enterprise Edition. The first thing we need to know is the deployment method has changed. We're now using open virtualization format files, so we need to find an OVA file, and we're going to use the VMware vSphere client to deploy the Enterprise Edition. If I now open the vSphere client, go to the File menu, go to the OVA template deployment, I need to browse on my file system. And here we go. This is the latest version I'm using, which is 2.0.1. If I now open that file and pass through the wizard, it's showing me the product and the size on the disk. It's asking me to read the license agreement and accept. It's asking me for a name of the management console, so I can add in the version, for example. I can then choose the inventory location. I can choose the ESXi host or cluster. I can choose the resource pool to place the virtual machine inside. And I can choose the storage location. So I'm going to choose the management data store to place this virtual machine on. This will require 15 gigabytes of disk space. Now I can choose the disk format, so I'm going to go for thick provision lazy 0. And this is the summary of the deployment. I'm not going to deploy this, I've already got one deployed, so let's cancel this wizard and move to the existing deployed virtual machine. Here it is. If we now open the console, the first thing you notice is we're actually using Linux CentOS release 6.7 as the platform for the management console. So I'm going to log in using the root user, and the password is 4400 Dominion. And because this is in its default state, this management console will receive a DHCP assigned IP address and mask and gateway, and I'm going to configure these for static addressing. So I'm going to use a standard text editor of VI in Linux, and I need to edit certain configuration files. The first file I will configure is for the Ethernet adapter. So that's the file. You notice that it's set for DHCP boot protocol. So I'm going to change this. I need to press the I button on the keyboard to go to insert mode, and now I can move my cursor and change the settings I require. Now I'm going to add in the network address. I'm going to add in a mask for the subnet. And I'm going to add in the IP address. Okay. If I press escape, I come out of the insert mode. I now need to save this file, so I'm going to use colon, W for write. I need to quit the editor, so I do colon Q. And let's just check that these settings have taken. I'm going to use a different command, which is cat for concatenate, and this is just reading the file that I've just edited. Okay, the next file I need to edit is the network file, and I need to change the host name and the gateway address in here. So I'm using VI again. And as you can see, we have the default host name in this file. So I'm going to change this. Press I for insert. And now I can clear that existing name out and put in something relevant. Notice I'm putting the fully qualified domain name in this. And I'm also going to add a default gateway. The reason I need all of these settings is because when I go to activate the license requires internet connection for license activation. So there's the host name, there's the gateway. Let's press escape, and we can now press colon, and we're going to write and quit at the same time. And again, let's check the file has changed using the cat command. Okay. The next file we're going to modify is for the host name again. We need to edit the hosts file. So using VI again. Right, there is a name in there already. I need to add an extra line. I for insert, and I'm actually need to add this line as the top line of this file. This is very important. Notice I'm using the loopback address, and I'm going to put in the same host name as I did in the network file. So that's that, and we escape, and we need to write and quit. And again, let's check the file has been edited correctly using the cat command. There we go. So it's the top line of the hosts file. And the last file I'm going to edit is to add a name server for DNS name resolution. So I'm going to edit the resolve config file. Now this has been generated automatically by this script in the top line. So this information has come from the DHCP server. I'm going to edit this to add manual entries into this file. So I for insert, and I'm going to add in a domain name to match the domain I'm using, which is also part of the fully qualified domain for my host name. I'm going to add a manual name server address. I'm also going to add another name server for redundancy, and you're familiar with this IP address, I'm sure. Okay, let's escape and write and quit, and again we can check the file has been written to properly. Okay, let's use some commands to check these settings have taken place. What I'm going to do first of all is to restart the network. So this is taking the settings that I've already got in the configuration file. We're changing from dynamic to static addressing. And the next setting we need to restart, we're going to restart the management console daemon. Okay, so the next thing I need to do, I've finished the configuration. Let's type ifconfig to check these settings have taken place. And as you can see, the IP address is now changed to 10.4.20.221. The mask is the same. Let's use the root command to check the gateway is correct. Okay, if you look at the third line in that file result, you can see the default is set to 10.4.20.1. And let's just check the name resolution's working by pinging an external address on the internet. So I'm pinging the Teradici website, teradici.com, and that's working. I'm going to clear this screen now. And the next section we're going to look at is activating the license. So as part of the management console, there are some folders included as part of the product to allow us to view the license, to run scripts to view the license, activate license, and return license as well. This is the folder structure I was talking to you about. So OPT Teradici licensing. Within that folder, we have some scripts to activate the license. That's the script we're looking at. We now need to put some options. So option K, and now I need to put in a license to have this activated across the internet. This takes a while. So you need to have internet connectivity for your management console, name resolution, gateway address. There you can see the activation is complete. It may take up to 5 minutes for the license to take effect. So while we're waiting for that, I'm going to show you some other commands and other options when we're looking at the licensing of the management console. First of all, I'm going to change to that folder. And now we're going to list the contents. You can see we have 3 scripts in there. One is mc_activate_lick. That allows us to activate licenses. We have mc_return_lick. This allows us to return a license from an existing management console in case you're moving that console to another host, and then you need to reactivate the license once you've moved the management console or reinstalled it onto another host. And in order to do the return, we need to use the view script, mc_view.lick to show certain values of the license to do this. One option I haven't mentioned yet is if you're working behind a proxy server, so your license server is on your LAN, and there's a proxy server between you and the internet, you may need to use some extra switches in order for the proxy server to process the license request out to the internet. So I'm going back to a previous command I've already used where I've activated the license. I need to add an extra switch, which is P for proxy, and then I may need to use a username and their password to allow them to access the proxy server, along with the proxy server's IP address and a port that you may have set up. So my username is Jonathan, and then :password, whatever my password may be. And then we point it at the proxy server. And whatever port you're using that you have. So that's the syntax you need to use if you're working behind a proxy server. And some proxy servers you may not need to put the username and their password, so you can pass it straight to the IP address and the port. I'm going to clear that line. Let's look at the mcview_lick script. This allows you to return the license and also to see if your license has been activated. I'm going to use a short path to show this, not the fully qualified path. So mc_view. This is showing me my entitlement ID, which I typed in when I activated the license. It's also showing me an extra value, which is the fulfillment ID. So if I want to return my license, I can use the fulfillment ID, and what I need to do there is use a different switch, which is F, and then I put in the fulfillment ID, which is 113.4.29867. And then that would return the license back to the licensing server, freeing it up for me to use on another system if I'm going to decommission this management console and recommission it in another position in my network. Okay. Right, now we've got the licensing enabled. Let's flick round to the web browser to check the management console is operational. So I'm using Firefox. Okay, so now we can see the console is operational. We've been given a logon screen, and the username is admin, and the default password is password. Okay, and we can see it's operational. Let's just check the version we're running. I'm going to the Settings tab, Version, and you can see that we're running 2.01 and the build version is 4089. If we go to the endpoints, we can see nothing's been installed. We're all clear. If we go to software, notice that no firmware has been installed onto this management console. So we're starting from scratch. One more place to look. The users, we can see there's a default administrator, and one more configuration that is very useful is the time zone, because you want this time zone to match the time zone of your operating environment, whether you're working in Central European time zone, UK time zone, or Middle East time zone. This must match the time zone you're working to make sure that the scheduled jobs that you make work in the correct fashion. So I'm going to edit the admin user, and now we can change their working time zone. So for example, we may be working in Cyprus, in Nicosia, and the time zone has changed and it's now reflected in the console. The next configuration we're going to look at is the discovery mechanism that we can provide for zero clients who may be on a routed network where there's a router or routers between them and the management console itself. So if I just minimize the browser, we have two options. The first option I'm going to show you is using DNS service locator records, and afterwards I'll show you how to use DHCP scope options to do a similar thing. I'm using a Microsoft DNS server. So there are three records we need to enter in order for a zero client to find and also to trust a management console on the network. The first record we need to create for the management console is an alias or an A record with the host name and the IP address. The second record is a service locator record or SRV record, which tells the zero client that this service locator record is offering a service of management console and it points to the A record. The third record is a text record, and this text record contains security information to allow the zero client to trust the management console. So the first thing I need to do is create the A record, the alias. And I'm just using the host name that we've already created in the management console. Notice the fully qualified domain name is automatically generated. I now need to add the IP address. And I'm also going to create an associated pointer record, which is for reverse lookup where the IP address is checked and the host name is given for that IP address. Okay, let's check that that's happened. And this has appeared at the bottom of the list. It's the new entry. The second record I'm creating is a service record. Again, I'm highlighting the domain I'm in, which is PCoverIP.local. I'm choosing other new records, and I'm going to type S, and it brings me to the service locator record in the list. And when I create the record, I need to put certain values in the service, protocol, and port number. So what we need to do is the service name is underscore PCoIP bootstrap, and the protocol we're using is underscore TCP, and the port number is 5172, and the host that's offering this service is the A record I just created, which is, and I need to put the fully qualified domain name in here. So that's now complete. And let's check that is done. Because it's a TCP record, it's actually added into the TCP subfolder under PCoIP.local, and there it is. The third record we need to create is the text record. So again, I go to Other New Record on the menu and type T, which brings me to text. And now I need to put a record name in here, which is going to be the host name. And the text is going to be a value and also information about how to trust the management console. So we need to take some trusting information from the management console. And what we do is take the SHA-256 fingerprint from the certificate, the self-signed certificate or the generated certificate from the management console itself. So the information we need to type in here firstly is and now we need to take the certificate information. So I'll go back to the web browser. I click on the padlock, the security symbol. I click on the More Information button. And I need to view the certificate. And this gives me the SHA-256 fingerprint information down here. So what I need to do is highlight this, copy it, and then paste it into that record. Okay, let's just check that's happened. Notice there's no space between the equal sign and the information we've just gathered. Excuse me. Let me just check that's happened. If we scroll to the bottom, we can see the text record, we can see the host record, and in the TCP folder, we can see the SRV record. Now we've finished with the DNS service record entries. I'm going to close the DNS Manager tool down, and we're now going to look at an alternative to using DNS service records. We're going to look at DHCP scope options. These should be used in an environment where you may have multiple management consoles in a different environment, and you want to specify exactly which zero client connects to which management console based on the IP subnet and the scope options they receive when they receive their IP address. So I need to create some special entries in here. I'm highlighting the IP version 4 folder, and I now need to create some vendor classes. So in here I'm going to add a new vendor class, and we're going to call this PC over IP endpoints. And I shall give it the same description. And in the ASCII column, so I'm clicking on the right hand side to get into the ASCII column, I need to add in the entry PC over IP endpoint. Which adds the binary text as well. Okay, now that's complete. Now what I need to do is go back to the IP version 4 folder and set up some special options. So I'm going to set some predefined options based on that class ID. So I need to choose the class ID I've just created, PC over IP endpoints, and I'm going to add an option. And this option is the vmware, which stands for Endpoint Bootstrap Manager, which is the management console, and the URI is the Uniform Resource Identifier. So it's another way of a zero client learning where a management console is. So the data type I'm going to choose is string, and the code is option 10, and the description is Endpoint Bootstrap Manager URI. Okay, and I shall fill out the string value later on. I need to add another option in the same class, and this is going to be for the EBM again, and we need to trust it. So X509 SHA 256 fingerprint. So this is very similar to the text record we created in DNS. Again, I'm going to use a string value, and this code is 11 for the option, and the description I'm going to take from the name. So I'm going to copy that and paste that straight into there. Okay, so now I've created a class and I've created two options in that class. Now I need to apply these. So what I'm going to do is click on the scope for my network. This is my IP address scope of 10.4.20.0. That's my network. And I've opened that, and there are the scope options. So you can see some default scope options such as 003 for router, 006 for DNS server, 015 for DNS domain name, and there's one there for an NTP name time server. So now I need to add in the options. I've right-clicked on that folder, and if I configure the option, I now need to go to the Advanced tab to choose the special class. So the vendor class I'm looking for is the one I've created earlier, which is PC over IP endpoints. And this shows me those two options I created just now. So if I enable 010, I need to put a string value in there, which matches the Endpoint Bootstrap Manager. So the text I need to type in is WSS 10.4.20.221, and the port number, the default port number is 5172. If you change that, you need to enter your specific port address in there. And let's apply that. So that's option 10. And now if we click on option 11, I now need to add the SHA 256 fingerprint. So if I go back to the web browser, as we did before, click on the padlock, click on the more information button, click on view certificate, and down the bottom here we have the fingerprints, and the one we need is SHA 256. So again, if I highlight, copy, go back to the DNS manager, scope options, and we've highlighted option 11, and the string value there, we just paste the information that I've taken from the certificate. Okay, so now what will happen when a zero client receives an IP address from this scope, it will receive all these scope options, including the router, the DNS server, and the information about the PC over IP endpoints. So it now knows where the management console is and how to trust it because it has the fingerprint of the SHA 256 certificate. So now I'll close the DHCP manager down, and I'll close the Management Console web browser down. And that's the end of this session. Thank you very much for listening. My contact details are on the background wallpaper. Thank you very much.